I wasn't expecting anyone. That's why I froze when the door opened without a knock, and her voice, low, steady, carrying something I couldn't place, filled the quiet. You left something? Or maybe you meant to. Her silhouette leaned against the doorframe, the afternoon light from the hallway framing her in a way that made it hard to look away. She wasn't just older. She carried years in her eyes, in the way she didn't rush her words. She had that kind of presence that made everything else in the room feel temporary. I should have answered right away. Instead, I stared at the book in her hand, my book. A novel I'd slipped onto her table weeks ago, after a clumsy excuse to visit her place. I told myself it didn't matter if she noticed. But now, seeing it in her fingers, I felt like she was holding something more than paper. You found it, I said, my voice uneven. Her mouth curved, not quite a smile. You wanted me to. That wasn't a question. I tried to laugh, but it caught halfway. Maybe. Or maybe I just forgot. She stepped inside, slow, careful, like the room itself might betray her. The faint scent of her perfume slipped in with her, something warm, almost citrus, the kind of smell that lingers even after she leaves. She set the book on my desk, but her fingers didn't leave it right away. You always leave pieces of yourself behind, she murmured, brushing dust from the cover. Little things. Notes. Coffee cups. I wasn't sure if it was careless or deliberate. I swallowed, my throat tight. Does it matter? Her eyes flicked up to mine then, sharp but soft at the edges. The kind of look that makes you want to answer honestly, even if you can't. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It pressed in, filled with the sound of the clock ticking on the wall, the faint hum of the city outside the window. I shifted, hands in my pockets, suddenly aware of every small movement. How close she was standing, how still she could stay. You're young, she said finally, almost to herself. Too young to know how messy this could get. The knock faded, followed by footsteps retreating down the hallway. We didn't speak until the silence returned, heavier than before. She let out a slow breath, straightening her posture as though she'd slipped back into armor. You shouldn't make this harder than it already is. I wanted to ask harder for who, but the words caught in my throat. Instead, I leaned back against the wall, watching her trace the rim of the book she'd brought. Her fingers moved like she was touching something fragile, something she wasn't supposed to want but couldn't put down. You act like this is impossible, I said. Like there's some rule carved in stone. There is, she murmured, almost with a laugh, though nothing about her face was light. It's called living long enough to know better. Her tone carried weight, but I couldn't stop myself. Then tell me, what is it I don't know? She looked at me then, really looked, her eyes shadowed, but steady. That you'll want things today that won't make sense tomorrow. That sometimes people like me are a mistake you spend years trying to forget. The words should have cut, but I didn't flinch. Something inside me steadied instead. Is that what you are? A mistake? Her lips parted, as if to answer, but nothing came out. A silence stretched. For the first time, I realized how much she was fighting herself, not me. I knew pieces of her story, enough to fill the blanks with questions. She'd been married once, a man I'd never met, but whose absence clung to her like a shadow. Rumors whispered of arguments, of long nights waiting for someone who never came home. I'd seen her in those quiet mornings when she thought no one was watching. Coffee cooling on the counter, her hands wrapped around the cup like it was the only warmth she trusted. And me? I wasn't supposed to be here, circling her like this. My mother's friend. The woman who'd offered me advice when I first started college, who'd driven me home when I was too tired to make it myself. I was supposed to treat her like family. Respect, distance, boundaries. But somewhere between late-night conversations and her eyes holding mine too long, I'd stopped thinking of her as untouchable. I shouldn't have walked in, she said suddenly, voice unsteady. I told myself not to. I almost turned back. But you didn't, I said quietly. Her gaze softened, tired but searching, like she was asking me to make sense of the things she couldn't. For a moment, neither of us moved. The room held its breath. And then it happened. Barely anything, yet everything. Her hand brushed against mine as she set the book fully down. Not accidental, not clumsy. A touch that lingered, that pressed enough to be felt, not ignored. She didn't pull away right away. Neither did I. The silence between us cracked open, charged, alive. Her hand was still against mine when the sound came. A sharp click of the front door downstairs. We both jerked back. Her eyes widened, the kind of panic you don't fake. I didn't even breathe. Then came the voice. Male, rough, calling up the stairwell. Claire. She froze. My pulse hammered. Her husband. I'd only heard about him, never seen him. The name came like a weight in the room. She whispered fast, urgent, her hand brushing the air like she could push me back into shadow. Don't say a word. I nodded, too quickly. My chest felt tight. Footsteps climbed halfway, then paused. Your car's outside. You home? Claire stepped away from me, her whole body shifting, posture stiffening, voice slipping into a tone that sounded practiced. I'm upstairs. Just give me a minute. Silence. Then the footsteps retreated, heavy, down the hall. A door shut somewhere below. I exhaled, too loud, and she turned on me sharply. You shouldn't be here. You let me be here. The words came out harsher than I meant. Her face tightened, like she wanted to deny it, but couldn't. She pressed her hand against her temple. This is exactly why. This is what I warned you about. I stepped closer before I thought better of it, my voice low. And yet you walked in. You brought the book. You touched my hand. Her breath hitched. She didn't answer right away, but her eyes said more than her silence did. Guilt. Longing. A tug of war inside her she couldn't hide anymore. The tension snapped in me first. I moved closer, close enough to feel her warmth, close enough that if she turned her head just slightly. Stop, she whispered, but she didn't move back. Her eyes flicked to my mouth, then away, fast. Too fast. I swear I could feel her heartbeat in the air between us. The moment cracked when my phone buzzed in my pocket, loud in the silence. She startled, stepping back like she'd touched fire. I fumbled to silence it, my hands clumsy. Her voice came sharp, but shaky. You need to go? Now. Claire, before I forget how much I'll regret this. The words stung, but her voice wasn't steady. It trembled. I reached out, not grabbing, just letting my fingers hover near hers again. You already have. Her lips parted. For a split second, the air shifted, like she might lean forward, might let the world fall away. But then the sound of footsteps below again. Heavy. Closer. She pulled her hand back like it burned. Go, she whispered, softer this time. Pleading. I hesitated, every part of me screaming to stay. But I stepped toward the door, each movement slow, my chest aching. Her eyes followed me, unblinking. The kind of look you don't forget. And just before I slipped out, her voice came, barely audible, like a secret she hadn't meant to say out loud. I don't want you to. I didn't sleep that night. Her words, I don't want you to, looped through my head until morning blurred into noon. By the time I saw her again, it was by accident. Or maybe not. Maybe I wanted to bump into her. The corner cafe near campus, where she always sat by the window with a book she never seemed to finish. She looked up when I walked in. Her eyes flicked over me quickly, then back to her cup, like she hadn't been holding her breath. I sat across from her before she could object. You shouldn't, she said softly. Neither should you. Her jaw tightened. Last night was too close. She cut herself off, her voice lowering. If he even suspected. I leaned forward, my words sharper than I meant. Then why didn't you let me go weeks ago? Why keep answering? Why keep looking at me like? She slammed her cup down, liquid trembling over the rim. Heads turned. She lowered her voice, eyes flashing. Don't you dare finish that sentence. But it was too late. We both knew what I'd almost said. For a moment, silence swelled. Her hand shook as she wiped at the spill with a napkin, avoiding my eyes. You think this is simple, she whispered. You think desire is enough to erase years of mistakes, of... Her voice broke, and she pressed her lips together. I couldn't hold back anymore. I don't care how old you are. I don't care if he's still in the picture. I can't stop thinking about you. And you. Her eyes snapped up, glassy, furious. Stop. I didn't. You don't want me to stop. The words landed heavy. She froze. Her hands clenched around the napkin like it might tear in half. Then she pushed back her chair, the scrape loud against the floor. Walk with me, she said, her voice low and uneven. Outside, the air was sharp with winter. She walked fast, and I kept pace. We turned down a quieter street, her breath clouding in the cold. Finally, she stopped. Her shoulders rose and fell as though the weight of every decision pressed there. "I can't keep living like this," she said. "Lying. Pretending. Wanting something I can't have." I stepped closer, then stopped pretending. Her eyes burned into mine, equal parts fear and hunger. "You don't understand. If anyone knew, then don't let them." She shook her head, frustrated, torn. "You think it's that easy?" I reached for her hand. This time, I didn't just brush it. I held it. Firm. Real. She didn't pull away. Her lips trembled, and for a second, she leaned just slightly forward, like the gravity between us was too strong. And then, a voice echoed from behind us. Familiar. Male. Claire. Her husband. She froze. My grip tightened. And for a heartbeat, neither of us turned around. "Claire?" The sound of his voice split the air like glass breaking. Her hand ripped out of mine. She turned, too quickly, too practiced, a brittle smile snapping into place. "You startled me." Her husband stood a few feet away, hands shoved into his coat pockets, eyes narrowing at the space between us. I forced myself to breathe evenly, to stand still. "What are you doing out here?" he asked. His tone was casual on the surface, but sharp underneath, like he was testing her answer. "I needed some air," Claire said. She gestured vaguely at me. I ran into him. The words stung more than they should have. I ran into him. Like I was an accident. Her husband studied me, his gaze heavy. "Is that so?" I nodded quickly. "Yeah, just coincidence." A long pause. He looked between us, the silence stretching. Then, without warning, his mouth curved into something like amusement. "Well, you always had a way of collecting strays, Claire." She flinched. Barely, but enough for me to notice. He clapped me on the shoulder, harder than necessary. "Good kid. Keep her company. She gets restless." The words twisted in my gut. "Good kid." Before I could respond, he leaned in closer to Claire, his voice lower, meant for her, but loud enough for me to catch. "Dinner's at 7. Don't be late again." Then he walked off, casual as anything, like the tension hadn't just poisoned the air. When he was gone, Claire's shoulders sagged, her hand trembling at her side. She didn't look at me right away. "That didn't sound like a man who trusts you," I said quietly. She shot me a look, wounded, sharp. "You don't know him." "Maybe not. But I know how he looked at you." Her lips parted, then closed again. She pressed her fingers to her forehead. This was a mistake. Anger sparked in me before I could stop it. "So what was last night? The touch? The way you looked at me at the cafe? Was that a mistake too?" She turned away, her breath unsteady. "You're too young to understand how complicated people can be." The words hit hard, but not because of my age. Because they weren't true. I understood, more than she wanted to admit. "Then explain it to me." I pressed. She finally faced me, her eyes wet but fierce. "He knows. He doesn't say it, but he knows. That's why he's watching me closer. That's why every word I say feels like a trap." Her confession lodged in my chest. This wasn't just guilt. This was danger. I reached for her hand again, slower this time. "Then leave him." Her lips trembled, her silence longer than I could bear. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "You think I haven't tried?" The words hit me like a blow. A revelation I hadn't expected. This wasn't just forbidden. It was a cage. And for the first time, I realized she wasn't just afraid of being caught. She was afraid of him. Her words, "You think I haven't tried?" kept circling in my head like an echo I couldn't silence. We sat in the small park a few blocks from the cafe, a place half hidden by winter bare trees. Her coat was pulled tight around her, her hands clenched in her lap, like she didn't trust them not to betray her. "You should hate me," she said suddenly, her voice rough. "For what?" I asked. "For pulling you into this. For letting you think." Her words faltered, and she shook her head. "You deserve someone free. Not someone tied up in regrets and chains she can't cut." I leaned forward, elbows on my knees, refusing to look away. "You're not a chain. You're the only thing that feels real." Her eyes snapped to mine, wet, searching. "And if I ruin you? If this becomes another scar I carry?" I let out a breath, sharp in the cold air. Then at least I'll know it mattered. At least I'll know you mattered. She stared at me, silence stretching, broken only by the wind rattling through branches. For the first time, she looked undone, not polished, not guarded. Just a woman stripped bare of excuses. Her lips parted, trembling. He'll never let me go? You don't understand the way he... I don't care. My voice came out harder than I expected. Then let him see. Let the whole damn world see. I'm not leaving you. The rawness in my tone seemed to shake her. She blinked, her breath catching. And then, finally, her hand slipped into mine. This time, no hesitation. Her fingers clung like she was drowning, and I was the only thing keeping her above water. I'm terrified, she whispered. I know. I squeezed her hand. So am I. For a heartbeat, everything narrowed to just that. Her hand in mine, the unsaid truth between us. She leaned closer, her forehead almost touching mine, her breath warm against my skin. If I cross this line, she murmured, I can't go back. Then don't, I whispered back. Don't go back. Her lips hovered inches from mine. Every second dragging like gravity itself was pulling us closer. Her eyes flicked shut, and then her phone buzzed in her pocket. Loud. Violent. She jolted back like she'd been burned. The screen lit her face as she pulled it out, his name flashing across it. Her hand shook. She silenced it without answering, but the damage was done. The space between us filled with everything we almost were. She looked at me, eyes raw, voice breaking. I want this. I want you. But wanting doesn't always win. Her hand slipped free of mine. She stood, wrapping her coat tighter, her back turned. Claire, she didn't move. Don't follow me. Not tonight. I sat there, breath shallow, my heart caught between fire and ash. I didn't know if I'd lost her or if this was the moment we'd finally found each other. All I knew was, nothing would ever be the same. It had been 3 days since she walked away from me in that park. 3 nights where I replayed the moment over and over, wondering if silence was her final answer. But then, on the 4th night, she showed up. Not with a knock. Not with hesitation. She just opened the door, the same way she had the very first time, and stood there in the dim light of my room. Her eyes were tired, red around the edges, like she hadn't slept either. But there was something steadier in her posture. You didn't listen, she said softly. I swallowed. You told me not to follow. You didn't say not to wait. That made her laugh, a broken sound that caught in her throat. She shut the door behind her and leaned against it, like if she didn't, she might fall apart. I can't promise you it'll be easy, she whispered. I can't promise you he won't try to make it hell. But I can't keep pretending I don't want this. That I don't want you. My chest ached with relief, with fear, with something bigger than both. Then don't promise me anything. Just stay. She crossed the room slowly, every step measured, like she was walking into something she'd been denying herself for years. When she finally reached me, she hesitated only a moment before sitting down beside me on the edge of the bed. I spent so long regretting what I didn't do, she said, her voice low. All the things I didn't say, didn't fight for. And then you showed up and made me feel seen. I didn't try to answer with words. Instead, I reached for her hand, the same hand that had pulled away too many times before. This time, she didn't let go. The silence that followed wasn't heavy anymore. It was fragile, but full, like a promise neither of us dared to speak, but both understood. When she leaned into me, her head resting lightly against my shoulder, I felt something shift inside me. Not victory, not possession, something quieter. A fragile beginning, born out of all the mistakes and fear that had nearly broken us. We stayed like that for a long time. No words, just the closeness of 2 people who finally stopped running from themselves. The road ahead was uncertain, maybe even dangerous. But for once, neither of us cared. For the first time, we weren't looking back. We were choosing each other. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next? I should have agreed, nodded, laughed it off. But the words that came out betrayed me. I'm not too young to know what I want. Her breath caught, barely audible, but I noticed. She turned toward the window, as though the light was easier to face than me. Wanting, she said softly, and living with what comes after. Those are different things. The way she said it told me there were ghosts in her past, things she didn't speak of, regrets that shaped her pauses, that lived in her silences. I took a step closer, enough to blur the space between us. Not touching, not yet, but near enough that she didn't have to strain to hear me. Then maybe you shouldn't have walked in. Her head turned, just enough to meet my eyes again. The look lingered, longer than it should have. For the first time, she seemed uncertain, vulnerable even. And then, before either of us could say more, the sound broke everything. A sharp knock at the door. Her shoulders stiffened, and her hand gripped the edge of my desk like it was the only thing holding her steady. I looked at her, then at the door, my heart hammering with the weight of a choice I hadn't even made yet. She didn't move. She just whispered, almost like a warning, "Don't answer."